Hey, what is going on, guys? Today in this video, we're going to be talking about the JTR Captivator RS2s. Now, I've been rocking these subwoofers in my dedicated theater room for the past 5 years and absolutely am blown away every time I come into my theater room, watch a movie, or listen to music. Now, Matt's been doing a deep dive into all the JTR subwoofers. I've got the RS2s here in my home. I've been using them for 5 years, so I thought I would just go over the details, share with you my personal experience, and let's just walk through some things that typically isn't covered on my channel. And so these here, these are dual 18-inch drivers. These are massive, massive, huge surrounds, lots of output. We've got 4,000 watt continuous amplifier to these, and they weigh a beastly 220 pounds. So these are made of Baltic birch. So they are super, super, like you can bang on these things and you barely hear anything. And that's because Jeff wanted to make sure they don't have any resonances inside the cabinets. And so when you look at my theater room, I don't have a big room. My room's only 13 feet wide, 19 feet deep, and I've got 10-foot ceilings. So one of the challenges that I had when I was designing my theater room is, where do I put the speakers? Where do I put the subwoofers? I don't have a whole lot of floor space. And so when we were building out this room, I originally had a bunch of different subwoofers and speaker systems. And as I continued to upgrade, eventually I needed to upgrade the size of my screen from a 103-inch non-acoustic to a 150-inch acoustically transparent. So once I did that, I was able to move all of my speakers and subwoofers directly behind the screen, and that freed up the floor space. This cabinet is probably about 4 feet from the front of this to the wall. This is my front wall. It's an exterior wall. That's concrete, that's concrete, that's concrete, and that is drywall because that's an interior wall. And then we've got concrete flooring. So there's a lot of, I don't get any additional tactile response from having like a floating floor or a floor on a second floor in a home. And so when I was thinking through like what I want to put back here, I needed something that was smallish. Like the 4,000 ULF are monstrous. They're massive. They won't fit here, especially the 4,000, the regular 4,000 ULF. In the past, I've always run ported subwoofers because typically ported subwoofers are going to give you more output, especially near the port tune. In this home, I had a chance to review the dual RS2s, and for the first time in my life, I was blown away with a sealed enclosure. And it helped me to understand that once you start getting into the larger drivers, 18-inch, dual 18-inch, 24s, 32s, and on up, you'll see most of the time those start moving to sealed enclosures. Some of the benefits from the sealed enclosure is you're not going to get any port noise. My previous subwoofers to these, if I cranked them pretty loud, you would hear what they call chuffing, which is when the air velocity that's coming out of the port, there's too much air that can fit through the port, and so it starts going flop, 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 flop. It makes this nasty noise. It's not desirable. When you go to a sealed subwoofer, you eliminate that. Now, sealed versus ported, I've got a dedicated video on my channel on that. These aren't as violent. When you get into the 4,000 ULF, the 2,400 that Matt just shared about in the previous video, they're more violent. I mean, it reminds me of the Avengers scene where Hulk and Loki are having a battle, and Hulk just grabs Loki and he just smashes him, smashes him, smashes him. That's the mental image I get of a ported JTR subwoofer. It's really violent, just reaches out and grabs you. These are more subtle, but don't get me wrong, there is plenty of tactile response in this room. A lot of times I have guests come over and they say, Michael, do you have tactile transducers? Do I have like butt kickers in the theater seats? And I don't. As I mentioned earlier, this is a concrete floor, so I'm not getting any reinforcement tactile from the flooring itself. Everything that you feel in this room when an explosion happens is all coming from these two subwoofers. And so I have absolutely loved these subwoofers for the past 5 years. If I had a bigger room than this, I might consider going to ported subwoofers. But this provides everything I need. And so let's talk about just really the dynamics of this. So JTR has an RS1. So just imagine this cut in half. The RS1 has a 2400 watt continuous amplifier. The RS2 adds an additional driver, and it bumps it up to a 4000 watt continuous amplifier. So these are Class D amplifiers. We'll spin this around in a minute. We'll take a look at the amp plate. I'll show you the knobs and adjustments on it as well. But with this subwoofer, I'm just getting massive, like I said, I grin ear to ear every time I provide demos in this room or every time I come in to enjoy it for myself, because I'm getting a response in this room solidly down to 5 hertz roughly. So I'm getting massive output, more than my room. I just wonder when I start cranking it up, I'm like, all right, what's going to come falling down? You know, hopefully we've secured my height speakers good enough. Hopefully my can lights are going to hold up. So far, so good. But this entire room just pounds. One question I get asked often a lot too is, do these speakers directly behind my screen, does it cause it to shake? Well, yeah, it absolutely causes it to shake. But it also causes my theater seats to shake. It causes this double sliding glass window to shake. It causes that main door back there to shake, and my internal organs to shake. You know, you're not going to stop that. But it does not, you never see it when you're watching a movie. It doesn't change visually anything. And that's exactly how your local cinema has it set up anyway, directly behind a screen. And so, like I said, I wanted something in here that provided lots of output. One of my main goals was to hit down to single digits. I was chasing after those sub 10 hertz frequencies. I really like those low frequencies. Of course, you can't hear it. You can't hear too much below 20 hertz. But you can absolutely feel 5 hertz, 8 hertz, 10 hertz. Now your room is going to dictate how low these are going to dig. And so, you know, it's not guaranteed you're going to hit 5 hertz. But I've taken measurements in my room and it's relatively flat down to 5 hertz with significant output. Definitely enough to hit reference volume. So no issues there. So in my setup, I run XLR cables. So with XLR, I come out of an Anthem AVM 70 and run one to each one of these. I'm not using a mini DSP right now. Later on, I do want to add that back into the mix just to see if I can get a even better response. So that down to 5 hertz, roughly flat, that was using a mini DSP. Honestly, I haven't measured these since I put the Anthem in. I've just enjoyed it. I let the Anthem do its own thing, but I guarantee if I took a measurement of it right now with just the Anthem, there's probably some dips and there's some peaks, and so I could do a better job of smoothing that out if I were to add the mini DSP back into my system. Another thing that I really liked about this, so I'm running the JTR Noesis 212 HTRs. So when I was, talking with Jeff about what I should do in this room, he recommended the 212 HTRs. And part of that, you can see these are exactly the same height as the LCR. So aesthetically, I love being able to flip the screen up. So this screen is literally just supported by like gas shocks. So you can see here, I'm not holding it. I wanted to be able to lift up that screen and just see this awesome display of power and might. It's so funny when people have never seen this, like especially guests that don't follow my channel. We had a guest come over the other day and I'm like, hey, let me take you in the theater room. And his wife was in there talking with my daughter and they were tanning. My daughter does home tanning here in the house. And I said, hey, come on in, we'll check out a theater room. He was like, oh, dude, this is awesome. And then when I lit up the screen, man, I look over at his face and his eyes lit up. He was like, holy crap, dude, I've never seen anything like that, especially in a house. And so this is like I said, man, this provides everything I've ever looked for in subwoofers. The output, the low end extension, low distortion. Aesthetically, I mean, they're not beautiful looking speakers, but I think they look incredible, especially in a dedicated theater room. Now, I'm not putting this out in my living room. Jessica would not go for that. I would need something like Perlisten, something that has a beautiful cabinet, maybe like the Kalos 12 Sub, but definitely not the RS2s. I might be able to get away with the RS1, but man, I'd have to hide it, put it under a table or something. There's no way she'd go for that. So if you don't mind the aesthetics of it, then, you know, these things are just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. They do have magnetic grills, and I love that Jeff uses really huge, very powerful, I think they're neodymium, that's how they pronounce it, neodymium magnets. And so when you put it close to here, it just snaps into place. You don't have to worry about adjusting the grill. It just locks on, but I never put the grills on, man. I want to see these drivers. I like them naked. And this is a dedicated theater room. Again, if they were out in the living room, maybe I would hide them, but I absolutely love these things. So pretty much that's everything on the front. Let's go ahead and I'm going to spin these around. I'm going to get some tape first because I do have this calibrated, and so I don't want to have to recalibrate. So I'm going to just use some blue tape, some masking tape. I'm going to mark off the corners in the front just so I can put the subwoofer back exactly where it was. I'm just going to throw some tape right there. Slap some more tape over here. Just like that. And depending on, now when I was originally looking at what subwoofers to put back here, I probably could have went with ported, but the only one I think that would have fit was the tall version of this. So the 4000 ULF comes in like 4 flavors, what I call it. You have the standard ULF, you have the sofa table, the low profile, and the tall. Tall might have fit back there, but it would have been really difficult to kind of wedge in there and get up there. So I just think these have been a perfect solution for me. So let me hop up here. And I've already got the power turned off. So I'm just going to unhook the XLR cable. I've got an RCA cable plugged in as well, but I don't use it. I just have it plugged in case I want to use the mini DSP. So again, these are 220 pounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and spin these around. Hopefully I won't mess up my carpet here. I'm gonna go ahead and unplug the power cord as well. Oh, these bad boys are heavy. 220 pounds of beast mode. Trying to keep from ripping my tape down there too, so I can get them right back where I had them. Get that tape back down. There we go. I should be able to. All right. All right, let me hop back down. We'll take a look at the amp. Okay, so here we have the rear of the subwoofer. So this is the plate amp. This is a 4,000 watt continuous amplifier. So looking over here, I know it's sideways, but we've got the on, auto, and off. I tend to leave it on. Some people like to set this to auto so that auto senses when there's music or content. I just prefer to leave it on. I want to make sure that we always have power ready and at the go, so that when we're watching something like A Quiet Place, I just don't want to miss any content when there's a quick explosion. Maybe the subwoofer goes into like a sleep mode or a standby mode. I've never really tested to see how quickly and how often this thing will shut off. But again, that's just my preference. You can do with what you want. The next dial here, this is the gain. So I'm a little bit under half gain here on the subwoofer. Let's see, LFE adjust. So LFE adjust right now is set to cut. So all the way to the left is cut, all the way to the right would be boost. Think of the LF adjust as the ability to create a house curve very, very easily and very simply. So this is going to boost just the really low frequencies. I forget what frequency, maybe I'll put it up here on the screen, but basically by adjusting this, if you want more of the really low bottom end, that's where you would boost this up. So depending on your room and how much boundary gain you're getting from the room, you're going to just adjust this to taste. There's really no perfect way. There's not a setting that I can say, hey, you need to put it at 4 clicks for your room. You're going to need to listen to it, see how it sounds. Ultimately, the best thing would be to take a measurement and then take another measurement with maybe at 1/4, another measurement here, and just physically see how that's impacting the frequency response in your room. The next one is the crossover. So typically on a subwoofer, I prefer and recommend turn this all the way to the right. So we're going to put that all the way up to 120 Hertz. Basically, that's going to disable the internal crossover in this amplifier. The reason for doing that is you want to control your bass management in your AVR or your processor, not here. And you definitely don't want to set a crossover inside your processor or AVR and then also set, a 70 Hertz or an 80 Hertz crossover here on the plate amp. So make sure, like I said, I recommend just turning that all the way up. The last dial is your delay. So typically in most scenarios, like in this case, I've got 2 subwoofers up front. The delay is going to be at 0. Again, measure this in your room. If you take a measurement at 0 and then you put it to, let's say, I can't see it from here, but whatever straight up is, take a measurement there, take a measurement all the way open. Whatever gives you the best frequency response, that's going to be your best setting for that. Now our connectivity, we've got XLR input and also an XLR output. So when possible, utilize XLR. That's going to minimize the potential for any kind of hum, any kind of noise that you're going to get. Maybe you've got just some bad power to your room. That can help minimize that because it has a dedicated ground in the XLR cable. Now, whenever possible, I would use a single RCA going into each one of your subwoofers rather than daisy chaining them. So technically, you could come out of your AVR or processor into here and then come out of here to your second subwoofer. The problem with that is you're not going to be able to adjust for things like delay inside your AVR. It's seeing that as one subwoofer. You're not going to be able to adjust the levels independently. So on something like a Anthem AVM 70, I've got 2 XLR outputs. So one is coming to this and one is going to the other subwoofer. If you had the AVM 90, you could have 4 subwoofers and go into each one of those 4. So that is balanced XLR inputs and outputs. You also have unbalanced. So if your AVR does not have XLR output for your sub out, that's when you want to utilize the RCA. Now typically your AVR is going to have a single RCA. I've always found it interesting that most amplifiers have a stereo pair of XLR cables. In the case of a home theater setup, you would just use this single one right here. You can see it says LFE, that's your low frequency effects. So you don't need to plug into this one, but you also could use a Y adapter and then connect to both of these here. Now, if you prefer to use a 12-volt trigger to turn on and off your subwoofers, you would set this switch all the way down to off/12 volt. So all the way down there, and then you would plug in your 3.5 millimeter from here and plug that other end into your AVR or your processor. Now, of course, all the way over here, we've got our main power input and then our on and off switch. Now, I often get asked, what type of power do you need to run this? So in my room, I run a single dedicated 20 amp. What that runs is it powers both of these Captivator RS2s. It powers my Kaleidoscape, powers my MadVR, It powers my Anthem AVM 70, my 4K player when it's in use, which is hardly ever. I've got an Arvolution media player that doesn't ever get used. So mainly it's the Anthem, Kaleidoscape, Maviar NV Extreme. Projector is on a different circuit. It's outside the room, and the lights in here are on a different circuit. They're on the standard 15 amp that was run to this room initially. I've never once tripped a breaker. I have cranked these subwoofers up pretty extreme to me. I'm not pushing 150 dB like Scott Newby, but there's plenty of output in here, and I've driven it some pretty loud levels. And again, I've never tripped a breaker. You know, would it be more beneficial to run these on a dedicated 20? Yeah, maybe you'd get more power to the amplifiers. But again, in my setup, my room, 13 by 19, 10-foot ceilings, I don't need any additional power. I don't need any additional output. Definitely works fine for me. But I wanted to throw that out there because a lot of people do ask about that. One other thing, let's go ahead and just talk about real quickly, just the fun stuff, the specs here. So size-wise, we're looking at 40 inches high, 21 inches wide, 18 inches deep. I mentioned to you earlier that it is 220 pounds. So frequency response, they rated at 16 hertz to 157 hertz, and then under 10 hertz in-room performance. So when they measured these on a ground plane, they measured down about 16 hertz. But because of the interactions of your room, you can definitely extend quite a bit lower than 16 hertz. Again, I've measured down to 5 here in my room. Cost on these are $53.99, and we do have these in stock on the website, Obsessed Home Theater. We've got the RS1s as well, pretty much the whole JTR lineup. So if this is something that you want in your home theater, you want it to bring as much joy as it's brought to me over the past 5 years, definitely check these out. If you got any questions, you can reach out to me directly, youthman@obsessedhometheater.com. I'm super active in that. I want to be able to be as big of a help as I can to you in your home theater journey. So if I can be of service, definitely reach out. Now we're going to be doing a lot more videos like this, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. These videos are going to be much more laid back, more instructional, more educational than the entertainment style. Not a lot of B-roll and such, so we just want to provide value to you, answer as many questions as we can for you. So if you got any more questions, let me know in the comments below. Hope you guys have an incredible week. God bless, and I'll catch you in the next video.